Ryan Cole stepped into Judge Caprio's courtroom like a celebrity arriving at a red carpet event. His designer jacket caught the fluorescent light, a gold watch glimmered beneath the cuff, and his expression carried that unmistakable blend of confidence and defiance that only comes from knowing your last name can open doors and close cases. When Ryan walked in, every step seemed to announce, "Rules are for others, not for me." Whispers rippled through the gallery. People recognized him instantly, the only son of Chief Cole, the city's long-serving police chief. It wasn't the first time Ryan had been in trouble, but this morning felt different. The arrogance in his walk clashed with the silent authority of the courtroom. The moment his eyes met Judge Caprio's, it was like two worlds collided, the world of privilege and the world of justice. Ryan leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and smiled as if the verdict had already been written in his favor. In his mind, this was just a formality, another instance where the law would bend to the chief's son. But what he didn't realize was that the man sitting behind the bench wasn't easily impressed by family names or flashy charm. Judge Caprio had seen hundreds of offenders who thought power could outshine accountability. What Ryan was about to learn was that no one, not even the son of the city's highest law enforcer, could rewrite the rules inside this courtroom. What followed would become one of the most unforgettable moments ever witnessed in Providence. A case that tested justice itself and delivered a punishment that history would remember. If you believe justice should never bow to privilege, subscribe to Real Judge Stories and share your thoughts in the comments below. Justice is about to begin. Chief Robert Cole had worn the badge for more than 25 years. To the people of Providence, he was a symbol of fairness, a man who rose through the ranks from humble beginnings, working long nights on the streets before becoming the city's most respected police chief. His colleagues admired his discipline, his unwavering sense of justice, and the way he treated every citizen, rich or poor, with the same quiet respect. But at home things were different. Ryan Cole, his only son, had grown up in the shadow of that uniform. While Chief Cole lived by duty, Ryan lived by name. The young man's world was luxury cars, exclusive clubs, and private circles where last names meant more than laws. He'd never felt the sting of real consequence, not because his father protected him, but because society did. People hesitated to challenge the chief's son. Doors opened automatically, and officers turned a blind eye, afraid of offending the hierarchy. Chief Cole tried to raise Ryan right. He taught him about integrity, courage, and honor, but privilege is a powerful teacher too. Over time, Ryan learned a different lesson, that power could bend rules, that reputation could erase mistakes, and that accountability was optional for those born into authority. So when a rookie officer dared to stop him one late night for reckless driving, Ryan's pride took over. To him, it wasn't a traffic violation, it was an insult. He didn't just see flashing lights behind him, he saw defiance against his father's legacy. That night, his arrogance crossed the line from entitlement to intimidation. He believed it would all disappear in court like every other time. But he was walking straight into Judge Caprio's domain, a place where justice doesn't recognize last names. It was just after midnight on Broad Street when the city seemed half asleep and the neon signs flickered like tired eyes. Ryan Cole's black sports car sliced through the quiet like a streak of lightning, its engine roaring loud enough to wake an entire block. The speedometer climbed, 50, 60, then 70 miles per hour in a 35 zone. Red lights blurred past. To Ryan, the night was his playground, and the laws of Providence were merely decorations on the roadside. Officer Ethan Daniels, a rookie barely 6 months into the force, spotted the car as it tore through an intersection. His training kicked in, lights on, siren engaged, calm voice over the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 14. Pursuing a black coupe, possible reckless driver on Broad Street." Foremost drivers, flashing red and blue lights meant fear. For Ryan they meant annoyance. He smirked in the rearview mirror and pressed harder on the gas. The city blurred into streaks of light until, finally, he stopped near the entrance of a closed nightclub, like a king deciding when to end his own parade. Officer Daniels approached the car cautiously. "Good evening, sir. License and registration, please." Ryan didn't move. "Do you know who you're talking to?" The officer kept his composure. "I just need to verify your documents, sir." Ryan's tone sharpened. "That name on the license, Cole. As in Chief Robert Cole. My father runs this department. So maybe think twice before wasting my time." Daniels replied, steady but firm. "Sir, you were clocked at 68 in a residential area. That's reckless driving." Ryan laughed, the sound sharp and careless. "You really want to hand a ticket to the police chief's son? You must not like your job much." The rookie hesitated for half a second, but only half. Sir, the law applies to everyone. That line hit Ryan like an insult. He leaned closer. You're making a big mistake, officer. Careers end over things like this. Trust me, I can make one call and you'll be writing reports in the basement for the rest of your life. Daniels silently finished the citation and handed it over. Drive safe, Mr. Cole. Ryan snatched the paper, smirked and muttered, You'll regret this. He had no idea that his words, caught clearly on the officer's body camera, would soon echo in Judge Caprio's courtroom, and change the course of his life forever. The morning sun filtered through the high windows of the Providence Municipal Court, slicing thin lines of gold across the polished floor. Reporters weren't allowed inside, but everyone in the city already knew who was standing trial that day. The headline had been enough to stir curiosity. Police Chief's son faces Judge Caprio for threatening officer. Ryan Cole entered the courtroom wearing the same confidence he'd worn behind the wheel that night. A tailored navy suit replaced the leather jacket, but the arrogance was the same. His expensive watch glinted under the lights, and his smirk told the world he still didn't take any of this seriously. Behind him sat his father, Chief Robert Cole, silent and stern, his face unreadable. Judge Frank Caprio looked up from his case notes as the bailiff announced, State of Rhode Island versus Ryan Cole. Good morning, Mr. Cole, Judge Caprio said calmly. Ryan gave a lazy nod. Morning, Judge. No, Your Honor. No hint of respect, just the careless tone of someone accustomed to being untouchable. The room went still. Even the ceiling fan seemed to slow its turn. Judge Caprio's eyes didn't waver. Mr. Cole, you're charged with reckless driving and with attempting to intimidate a law enforcement officer. How do you plead? Ryan leaned back, flashing a half-smile. Honestly, Your Honor, this seems blown out of proportion. Maybe we can save time if you just call my father. I'm sure he can clear things up. The courtroom murmured. Chief Cole's jaw tightened, his eyes lowering in quiet embarrassment. Judge Caprio's tone cooled. Mr. Cole, this courtroom doesn't operate on family connections. We deal in facts, not favors. Ryan shrugged. Of course. I just think context matters. The judge tilted his head. Context doesn't erase conduct, Mr. Cole. Ryan smirked again. We'll see about that. What he didn't realize was that every smirk, every arrogant word, was sealing his fate. In this courtroom, justice didn't bend, it waited silently for the right moment to strike. Judge Caprio adjusted his glasses and opened the case file. Mr. Cole, according to Officer Daniels' report, you were traveling at 68 miles per hour in a 35 zone. When stopped, you identified yourself as the police chief's son and allegedly threatened the officer's career. Is this report accurate? Ryan gave a dismissive chuckle. Threatened? That's an exaggeration. I just reminded him who he was talking to. You can't blame me for expecting a little professional courtesy. The judge's tone remained steady. Courtesy and corruption are not the same thing, Mr. Cole. Ryan leaned forward, smirking. Come on, Judge. Let's be realistic. My dad runs the department. Every officer knows that. The rookie was just trying to make a name for himself. Maybe he didn't realize who I was. A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Judge Caprio lifted a hand for silence. So, you believe your father's position exempts you from the law? Ryan shrugged. Not exempt, just flexible. You've been around long enough to know how things work. It's not about favoritism, it's about priorities. Priorities? The judge repeated. Yeah, Ryan said, his voice growing bolder. There are real criminals out there, drug dealers, thieves, people who actually hurt others. Instead, this kid wastes time pulling over the chief's son for going a little fast. Maybe he should have thought about the bigger picture. Judge Caprio sat back in his chair, studying him for a long moment. His calm expression hid the fire building behind his eyes. The bigger picture, Mr. Cole, is that the law is meant to protect everyone, not to privilege anyone. Do you understand that? Ryan smirked again. I understand how the world really works. Chief Cole's head dropped slightly. He had spent his entire career teaching integrity and respect. Hearing his son speak like that cut deeper than any punishment could. Judge Caprio's voice grew firmer. Mr. Cole, I want to be absolutely clear. What you said to Officer Daniels was not reminding him who you are. It was intimidation. You attempted to use your father's position to influence the enforcement of the law. That is serious misconduct. Ryan waved his hand dismissively. With all due respect, Your Honor, you're making this sound worse than it was. Nobody got hurt. It's just a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. A misunderstanding? The judge asked. Officer Daniels recorded the entire encounter on his body camera. Ryan's smirk faltered for the first time. Yes, Judge Caprio continued, and in this courtroom we rely on evidence. Not names, not influence, not stories. We'll review the footage now. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the monitor flickered to life. The audio filled the room, Ryan's voice, cold and commanding. My father runs this department. Tear up the citation and we'll forget this ever happened. Then the tone shifted. If you go through with this, you'll regret it. I promise you that. A silence heavier than stone settled over the courtroom. Ryan stared at the screen, his earlier confidence draining from his face. When the footage ended, Judge Caprio folded his hands. Do you still call that a misunderstanding, Mr. Cole? Ryan hesitated, his voice unsteady for the first time. I might have gone too far. But it wasn't meant as a threat. Intent, Judge Caprio replied, does not erase impact. Your words attempted to corrupt a system your father swore to protect. The tension was suffocating. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Mr. Cole, the judge concluded, justice isn't a privilege you inherit, it's a responsibility you respect. And from what I've seen today, you have a lot to learn about both. The gavel didn't fall yet, but the sound of justice was already echoing through every corner of that courtroom. The courtroom lights dimmed again as Judge Caprio signaled the clerk to replay a key portion of the footage. The screen came alive with the harsh glow of a police body camera, capturing the flashing red and blue reflections bouncing off Ryan's sports car. The sound of the engine still running underscored every word that followed, each syllable a weight heavier than the last. Ryan's voice cut through the still air of the courtroom. You know who my father is, right? You're wasting your time and making a career-ending mistake. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. The arrogance was unmistakable. On the screen, Officer Daniel's steady reply played back. Sir, my duty is to the law, not to names. Then came the line that froze everyone in the room. Ryan's recorded voice said coldly, then your duty will cost you your job. When the footage stopped, the silence was deafening. Even the ticking of the courtroom clock seemed to hesitate. Chief Cole sat motionless, eyes fixed on the floor. His reputation, the one he'd built with decades of loyalty and fairness, had been dragged through the mud in less than a minute of footage. Judge Caprio exhaled slowly and looked directly at Ryan. Mr. Cole, that recording speaks for itself. What I see is not a misunderstanding or a mistake, it is an abuse of influence, a betrayal of public trust, and an insult to every honest officer who serves this city. Ryan tried to speak but his voice faltered. Your Honor, Enough, the judge said quietly but firmly. For years I've watched people walk in here thinking power could bend justice. They all learn the same lesson eventually. Today you'll learn it too. The gavel rested silent beside Judge Caprio's hand. The punishment hadn't been spoken yet, but everyone in the room could already feel it coming, swift, deliberate, and unforgettable. Judge Caprio leaned forward, his hands clasped, eyes steady on the young man before him. The air felt charged like the seconds before a storm. Mr. Cole, he began slowly, your behavior tonight has been exposed, not only as reckless driving but as something far worse. You used your father's name as a weapon against an officer who was doing his job with integrity. That is not confidence. That is corruption disguised as arrogance. Ryan shifted uneasily. Your Honor, I didn't mean. The judge raised a hand. You had every chance to apologize before this moment. Instead, you tried to justify intimidation as context. You seem to believe that your father's position puts you above the law. I assure you it does not. Chief Cole's expression remained frozen, his disappointment carved deeper than anger. The man who had spent his life enforcing fairness was now watching his own son tested by the very system he'd sworn to protect. Judge Caprio continued, his tone both firm and compassionate. The purpose of this court is not revenge, Mr. Cole, it's correction. My goal is not to humiliate you, but to teach you that responsibility comes before privilege. He opened the file again, scanning briefly. For reckless driving, you are fined $7,500. For intimidation of a law enforcement officer, an additional $10,000. Ryan swallowed hard, trying to appear composed. He knew his family could afford it. But then Judge Caprio's voice changed, deeper, slower, deliberate. However, he said, you seem to believe that money can erase mistakes. It cannot. Therefore, your driver's license will be suspended for 2 years. You will not operate a motor vehicle until you've earned back the public's trust. Ryan's jaw tightened. 2 years? That's excessive. Judge Caprio's gavel struck once, sharp and final. Excessive is using power to threaten an officer. Excessive is treating justice like a favor. You, Mr. Cole, will learn humility through service, not comfort. The courtroom leaned forward as the judge delivered the sentence that would be remembered for years. You are hereby ordered to complete 150 hours of community service at the Providence Police Department, specifically within the Evidence Management Unit. You will work under the supervision of officers you once mocked, performing the duties that keep this system running. You'll report every Saturday at 6 a.m., and you will not leave until your 8 hours are complete. Gasps echoed around the room. Ryan's face went pale. You're making me work there? People will see me. That's humiliating. Judge Caprio's tone was unwavering. Humiliation is not the punishment, Mr. Cole, it's the lesson. And I believe you need to learn the difference between being respected and being feared. The gavel struck again, softer this time, but its echo lingered like a moral weight. Case closed, Judge Caprio said. In that single moment, the courtroom understood why his judgments became legends. Justice had not just been served, it had been restored. For the first few weeks, Ryan Cole treated his community service as a personal humiliation. He arrived late, muttered complaints under his breath, and avoided eye contact with every officer in the evidence facility. Gone were the designer suits and gold accessories. Now he wore the same Navy uniform as everyone else, pushing heavy boxes and filing dusty reports under the supervision of Officer Daniels, the same rookie he had once threatened. At first, Daniels didn't say much. He simply handed Ryan the tasks and kept working. But over time, something began to shift. Ryan noticed how the officers treated each other, with quiet respect, with camaraderie, with a shared belief that no one stood above the law they served. There were no titles here, no favors, no shortcuts. Just effort and integrity. One afternoon, while organizing old case files, Ryan found an envelope labeled Community Complaints, 2014. Inside were handwritten letters from citizens thanking Chief Cole and his team for fair treatment, even in difficult times. The words hit him harder than any punishment ever could. For the first time, he understood that his father's name carried weight not because of power, but because of respect earned through years of honesty and sacrifice. By the third month, Ryan had stopped complaining. He showed up early, took pride in finishing his tasks, and occasionally stayed longer than required. The officers noticed, but none more than Daniels, who finally approached him one Saturday morning. Didn't think you'd make it this far, he said quietly. Ryan gave a small, genuine smile. Neither did I. When the last hour of his final day arrived, Ryan signed out of the evidence log, his hands dusty but his conscience clear. The arrogance that once defined him had been replaced with something new, humility. He had entered Judge Caprio's courtroom believing he was untouchable. Now he walked away understanding that true honor isn't inherited, it's earned through accountability. When Ryan Cole completed his final day of community service, he didn't walk out of the police headquarters as the chief's son. He walked out as a man who finally understood the meaning of justice. The weight of privilege that once blinded him had been replaced by a quiet awareness that respect cannot be demanded. It must be lived, earned, and proven through actions. Judge Caprio's sentence became more than a courtroom story, it became a message echoing far beyond Providence. People shared it, talked about it, and remembered it as the day justice stood taller than power. The city saw a young man's fall from entitlement turn into a rise toward redemption, all because one judge refused to let the scales of justice tilt for a famous name. Chief Cole never once intervened, and when asked about the outcome he simply said, "The badge on my chest means nothing if my son can't respect what it stands for." In a world where influence often hides behind polished smiles, Judge Caprio reminded everyone that the law is only as strong as the integrity of those who uphold it. If you believe that no name should stand above the law, subscribe to Real Judge Stories and tell us in the comments what justice means to you.